I'm kind of building a tool for the startups, and I'm kind of trying to understand what are the three maybe pain points for startup when they have very limited people, and I think most of them they are focused on the technical side, but they kind of think some people need to work on the pitch and finding the users and marketings.
Any of you want to start? 3 pain points working in a startup with limited resource.
No, I mean, the thing is when you're starting a company, like when you're early stage, it's kind of you have to do everything, and so everything like it spreads out like across many different like you have many different pain points. That's the big difference. Like when you're a tiny company, it's like the founders and the early employees have to wear many different hats, and they have to kind of end up doing like a little bit of everything, which is like that's why it's been fun to work in a startup. It's a great learning experience, is you get to work on a ton of different things, right? But like most of the time, the early stage startup, they're looking for customers. Like that's the biggest challenge. Is like how do we find those early customers, and how do you build the right product for them, get them closed, and all of that. Like all the other things around marketing. Marketing is just like that's once you have a product that actually is like, is like, hey, has some product market fit, and now you want to reach and you want to scale it and reach many more, right? But if you try to if you're investing in marketing or building up a sales team or anything like that, before you have done that, it's wasting a lot of money. And so so the early stage thing, for all those early stage startups, it's always about, how can we kind of find more customers and kind of more quickly reach the product market fit.
Charles.
I would just get the three challenges for early stage startups: money, talents, and the PMF. So because you need the money to give you a longer runway, so you can stay alive, and you need talents to build the product, and most importantly, you need a PMF to make sure you are heading in the right direction.
Very good.
I want to chime in a little bit. So money, right? So that's one thing. It can determine whether your co-founding team is full-time or part-time. That's very important, right? So what's the drive? How dedicated your founding team members are. Very important. Not only time allocation, but also whether all of you share the same destiny. Very important. I've seen a few startups, brilliant people, should have been very successful, but the different co-founders, they are heading towards different directions, not able to align. Like our panelists at the beginning mentioned, what is the connection of your co-founding team members to the problem you want to solve? What is the calling? Share the same mission and the dedication. Very important. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one quick thing to add there, though. So we're especially in AI, we're in a bubble right now, and so there's a lot of people who would be willing to give you money, even if the idea is not very good. So just realize that just because somebody's willing to give you money doesn't mean it's necessarily a good idea, or that you should spend your time on it. And I see way too many entrepreneurs. They're just focused entirely on, well, I just need to get a famous investor to invest in me, and that's going to change all of our fortunes, and it's going to be the big. It's no, that's the wrong thing to focus on. I mean, we should actually be focused on is product and customers and those kind of things. And then all those famous investors will come knocking to your door instead of you trying to kind of go and convince them to give you money. And I think there's this vision of oh, it's on Shark Tank or whatever. It's oh, I got my big break because it's famous investor decide to give you money. That's not. I mean, all the best investors are looking for people who already have that something, and then kind of and if you want that process to be successful, you should really just focus on building a great product and customers, those kind of things. Obviously, you need money and resources to do this, but you don't get trapped in this thing of like this raising money is like a vanity metric. You see, oh, this company raised $10 million. This company raised $100 million, and it's like it becomes just like it's like a vanity metric. It doesn't actually matter, and in fact, like often if you kind of overraise money, then you're setting yourself up for failure down the road because you basically cause a situation where your valuation is really high, and the only way to get there is to just crush it with revenues and those kind of things. So you can't afford a single misstep there, even though you may have kind of raised money at some vanity metric kind of money at a sky high valuation. Sometimes that you end up actually dooming your company, by kind of going down that road. Whereas like maybe you may have actually been slightly better raising kind of a smaller amount of money at a lower valuation, because then those become more achievable milestones to hit the next round, and then you can kind of continue on and be successful. So
each dollar amount coming in, it carries some responsibilities for you. Very important. And I talked to some of the very successful entrepreneurs. Some of them tell me after they're successful, I said, what still keep you awake at night? It share a common theme. They said, keep me awake is how to pay off better for my stakeholders. I want to pay them off so I can be very free. Right? Thank you.
Charles, you want to anything to add before we move on to the next one?
No, I don't.
Perfect.
Let's go to the next. Who raised the next question? Is it Charles?
Thank you for the insight. I learned a lot. One of the Silicon Valley legend, Larry Ellison, the founder of the Oracle, he is famous to talk to customer about the feature that his product do not have, and then rush back have the engineer implement it. So I just wondering, you all have the a lot of the startup experience. When you do the to B or to C, what is a customer interview or procedural approach different? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Customer interview procedure approach in the perspective of B2B and B2C.
And you want to?
So often when you have on the B2C side, you can use kind of these different techniques where you can actually get a kind of much higher volume, where it's like you can do things like, let me buy some AdWords, or let me just make a landing page and just see how many people will click through it, right? And then measure that, and because you can get something statistically significant to be like, hey, I have 1,000 people visited this page, and then I can do an A/B test, and I can kind of like test that out. That becomes a lot harder in the B2B scenario, because you don't have 1,000 customers to talk to. You have, maybe 10 that you can talk to, right? So you can't do that type of kind of statistical analysis type of thing. So then like often those type of things just become much more about deeply understanding like the customer's problem, and kind of a lot more kind of back and forth dialogue with them, versus like these kind of quantitative approaches that you can often do with in a B2C world. Because like in the B2C, you can just kind of like anybody, you can just buy some AdWords on Facebook or Google or any other platform there, and really quickly test hypotheses. It's a lot harder. It takes a lot longer to test hypotheses in the B2B world.
Exactly. Charles, you want to add something?
I never been in the B2C business, but as I mentioned, that when we build up our company as a data infrastructure company, we decided to open source our technology in the early days, and we use that as a very efficient approach to engage our customer and to have their feedback.
Very good.
Personal experience, B2B, B2C, customer interview session fundamentally different. B2C, we're facing mass market. Like we need to launch at scale. The challenge is at scale, but not biased, right? You see the surveys, but all have pros and cons. So even you launch a survey, easier for you to process are those checkboxes and skills but then it's biased, right? You are predefine the answers for the users. The better one for your user to tell you is a free input, right? But then it's hard. You need to get the verbatims, feedback. What's the sentiment from this? It's a balance, right? So this is a B2C. B2C market is very dynamic, like a gaming market. Today you are successful. It doesn't mean tomorrow you continue successful. And it's a very, changing market, dynamic. The cadence is different. When you work on B2C, your release agile process as short as 2 weeks, sometimes 1 week, right? Working on B2B is different. It's so-called more stable. You are working with premium customers. You get a cup of deal. You're successful this year. And you need to capture their revenue scale, right? Their revenue period. Because sometimes towards the end of the year, they use up their revenue for the next year. So your sales cycle, your BD cycle need to line up with theirs. The way how we gather the customer's voice is that we sometimes invite the premium customers on site, right? You either host a customer research session in a hotel or in your own big conference room. And then because you have a handful of premium customers you care about, so that's a totally different style. And when you conduct your customer interview with B2C, say you invite a 20 premium customer on site, you do not host everybody in a big conference room and conduct interview. Why? Because the person with the biggest voice is going to dictate the course. In a few minutes, you are going to observe who have the biggest voice, who likely sway people's opinions. It's going to shield a lot of opinions. So likely you want to do small conference room interviews. You'll hear everybody's voice. There are some other techniques, but very important, like John and Charles mentioned, especially in recent years. Data-driven approach is key. Thank you for asking this question. Let's go ahead.
I think there's some other good questions, so I think probably we can continue for another 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
So next one is it 即刻 or something? Yeah.
Thank you for all the insights. One of the things in practice for doing customer interviews is there is a marketing department, there is the product department, and we all have responsibilities, shared responsibilities for reaching the product market fit. And also we have internal resources as well as firms that we can hire for like IDEO or like other IDEO-like firms where you spend $200K and they'll do a set of customer interviews for you. So I was wondering if there are best practices and things that you would advise how companies would conduct these customer interviews within the company or use external resources to be able to aggregate this information quickly.
So at the early stage, basically this is something that it's essential that the founders do. You cannot outsource it. And you may be able to get some help with helping you to run the process, but the founder should be there in every single meeting and hear every word, not only every word that's said, but every nonverbal cue and everything else. There's no substitute for that. And so you can't outsource out this or just hire a consulting firm to go figure it out for you. This is part of the reason why big companies don't do this very well. And where they, I'm going to hire this out thing, we're going to have these focus groups and things like that. That's not, there's no substitute from being seeing that yourself, right? And so in the cases where you do engage with some outside outside help, that should just be around the logistics of getting people in and doing the interviews, that kind of stuff. Whoever it is in charge, whether maybe it's a founder, maybe it's a chief product officer, whoever's in charge of that, basically should be like in every single one of those meetings, and not because too much stuff gets lost in translation, and you know, if you're not doing that.
Exactly. I have some positive experience and negative experience about this. I want to bring up a few points. Is that interview process is not one way. It's not like we write a script, we hand off to some other like external resource and conduct it. It's conversational. We find a verbal cue, non-verbal cue. Non-verbal cue, 70% of our conversation is via non-verbal cue. In the interview process, it's not just question, answer. A lot of times it is observation, right? So it has to be done by some members very knowledgeable about your own product service. That's very important. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up, you mentioned about a marketing team and product team. I think for a bigger established organizations, fortunate, to have the resource to have different teams. So usually, personal experience for a different company is that the marketing team, they facilitate, the potential customer user reach. They set up the framework. They gather the information. They even have data scientist team members to help out to crawl the information back and summarize it. Then summarize, these are the pain points, these are the us, these are the sentiments, things done well, not well, but it's ultimately, you need to, as a product manager and the core engineering lead, need to work together with marketing team members and see how to interpret that information. It's essential. I wouldn't say the final requirement come from non-product team members. That's really a red flag. Very great question. Charles, would you want to?
I just want to add one more small point. So we know that we want to talk to customers in order to finally achieve PMF, right? So, but in my opinion, that you can never achieve PMF. You can only chasing PMF because it's a very dynamic environment. The market is changing so fast. In a B2C market, that customers' preference change generation by generation, and with all these Gen AI innovations that things are changing even faster. So So in the past 18 months, we saw a lot of companies, they raised a lot of money, and 6 months later, they were killed by a new release from OpenAI. And it happens again and again. That's why it's even more important we build a system that we can talk to customer, we can collect the feedback in a systematic way. Because the technology is changing, the market is changing, and even your audience is changing very, very fast. Thank you.
It's a never-ending game. Welcome to the game. Dynamic. Thanks.
I think next question is from me. So Charlie said when we were writing the script, so I saw a lot of interview stories that you guys, how you guys are went through during the very early stage, 2017. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because we're facing a very similar point right now, because we're trying to bring, I'm also a founder, and I'm trying to bring adaptive learning to some STEM projects, and we see okay, teachers believe in this path, and that is validated from some industry seminars, everyone is talking about it, and also we can see that HYSTA also believe in this path to see, but what I'm trying to say is that, okay, so besides customer-wise, I didn't see a very obvious signal from the customer right now. For example, I don't see any exact same competitors and saying, okay, how much revenue they're generating and how much consumers, customers, they're attracting. So I can't really validate my assumption, and also I also need a very strong and also solid assumption like to convince my team as well. So I would love to seek for suggestions about how you are doing this before. Yeah, how you were doing this. Yeah, thanks.
Actually, at that moment, it's very difficult to validate the idea. So as I mentioned, that nobody liked the idea. Even the very first core engineer in our team, he said, that's stupid. But you are the CEO. If you ask me to do it, I do it. But yeah, so I think that so our story is that it's around the year 2015. After working for Oracle for more than 6 years, and I was thinking that maybe I learned enough from Oracle. I want to do something else. And what's happening at that moment is that there's a breakthrough of deep learning, neural networks. So because I already know that actually in the world there are tons of unstructured data. So images, videos, human voices, and we have a camera here. We generate a lot of unstructured data tonight. And so we know that there are a lot of unstructured data. So, but in the past 50 years, all these images, the videos, most likely they're sitting in your data repository. No one could access it. I mean, to access it in a meaningful way to make sense of it. Because you're better off to have human beings to look at this picture to tell what's the content in the picture, in the video. And but with the breakthrough of deep learning, we will be able to use machine to process unstructured data at a large scale without human intervention. So yes, it was around year 2015. I know that there are tons of unstructured data. So actually, more than 80% of what's data was unstructured data. So it's a huge market. It could be a market that is 10 times bigger than Snowflake, Databricks, Oracle, Teradata combined, because all these companies are working on structured data processing for the IT area. But in the AI area, the data we are going to process is going to be different. It's unstructured data. So I saw the tons of unstructured data. So there's got to be a market over there. And with all these deep learning models, we will be able to process it. So that's the technology enabler. So I saw both of them, and then they just made a very bold decision, quit from Oracle and do it. I was so eager to do it because it's I would call either a motivation or illusion of an engineer, because we always want to be the pioneer. We want to be even we know that a lot of pioneers they failed. Most of the pioneers they failed, but still actually if I'm going to do that again, I probably will take a different approach. So after all these suffers and pains, but at that moment I was very bold. I took a very brave move. So quit from Oracle and start a company. In early days, I couldn't even raise my money. I put my personal savings. But I don't know whether this is a good idea and how I can validate this idea. But I set up a rule for myself. So I said to myself that, okay, I'm going to put this amount of my own money. I'm not going to put 2 years. So if I did the calculation. So pretty much after 2 years, my money will run away. So I had a very small team, 5 people, and then I financially supported my team, and I told myself when I use all the money and when I if I cannot find the initial PMF in 2 years, or I cannot raise any money in 2 years, I will admit that probably I better off not be an entry block. I will be just go back to Oracle or some other company to continue my tenure as an engineer. So I would say that so it's about like 18 months later. We were lucky that we had a prototype, and we were talking to one of the investors, and which happened to be early engineers at Google, and he really liked the idea. So he worked on database system for quite a long time. He really liked the idea. So we get initial funding, and that's how we survive. But I would say that there's no secret recipe to validate your idea. So so my suggestion is that you got to be resilient, you got to believe yourself, you got to be bold to create something. But on the other end, that you don't want to be stubborn. So you want to set a bar that where I tried long enough, or I tried hard enough, and I got to put a stop over there, because it may be a very stupid idea, and you don't want to lose all your money or you lose all your time and efforts on ideas that doesn't work out at all.
I feel like Charles' this innovation is disruptive innovation. It's from 0 to 1. One thing I see is that Charles is definitely an insider. Really no technology side. It's not like from outsider, you just bet on it. This is a bet, after risk assessment, because he has been working in the database. This only for very long. It's not from outside. Oh, I just want to work on yet another database, right? That's based on his solid technical foundation. And I recall Jack Benzel. He transfer his career from business, very, very top-notch business, into Amazon startup, right? Very questioned. Lots of people question about his decision, but his criteria, very interesting. He said, I'm not evaluating whether and how big success I will be, but my question is that after a number of years, will I feel regret if I do not take this startup opportunity, right? I guess similar for Charles, give himself, an opportunity. There's no regret, especially he came from the database insider perspective, the right move. Great question.
Can I have a follow-up? Earlier on you mentioned have both great and open mind, right? I think this is a good example. Yeah. I kind of want to follow up on that because I think vector database is draws really lots of attention since last year when LLM takes off, right? We need to save all these feature vectors, save all these rags in the special database for this. But you started in 2017. We all know, I think it's not hard to see the trend of technology, see the trend, what's the society, the life going to be like, but it's really hard to see where's the tipping point. Have you ever thought you were too early? At that point, besides investment, did you see other signs to support you? Okay, this is the right thing to do. Not only the right thing to do, but the right thing to do at this right moment. What is other sign, what other data you got at that time support this?
Yes. So first of all, that nowadays everyone talking about large language model, foundation models, and generative models. But if we look at their foundation, you will find out that they're no, theoretically, they are all neural networks. it's just a bigger network trained by massive amount of data, and have a huge amount of parameters, super parameters. And compared to models that we had 7 years ago, it's probably like 10,000 or even 1 million bigger, 1 million times bigger, right? But the fundamental is the same. It's a neural networks. It's a deep learning technology. So what I see during year 2015, 2016 that there already been a lot of innovations in natural language processing, in image processing, computer vision, even in autonomous driving, right? And also in recommendation systems. And we see a common pattern that scientists and engineers from all these areas are trying to apply deep learning to all these areas. And nowadays, when we talk about a large language model, I think large language model is nothing else than a foundation model for natural language processing. And nowadays we have we have generated models for computer vision, and this is nothing than a large foundation model for video analysis, for image processing. But the only difference here is that back 7 years ago, not only the model is smaller, but they are they are smaller, they are not less capable, but also means that they need a lot of efforts. The cost to apply this model are very, very high. You need a lot of fine tuning. You need a lot of you may need a number of PhD students who study AI to help you fine tuning the model. So we did some data analysis reveals that back 7 years ago, the cost to implement a very simple AI application started with $1 million. But look at nowadays. So you just need with the large language model, you just need a designer, a product manager, maybe like a hybrid engineer slash someone who can write a good prompt. With 3 people in 1 week, with less than $1,000 you can build your very first AI application, and it's much better than any AI application you built 7 years ago. So to get back to web database and unstructured data processing. So I would say unstructured data processing, they started in 7 years ago because all this deep learning, and so we started in year 2018, and by the end of 2020, we already get more than 500 enterprise users. But all these users, they are nowadays we call them like legacy old generation AI companies. But there's at that moment there's a lot of AI companies still but again they are building much smaller models. They need a lot of fine tuning, but still they need a better database. Because they have to have the ability to process embedding vectors. But at that moment, with the retrospection that why the database is was not famous at that moment, because at that moment I think probably around 1 million engineers in the world, they have the ability to build AI applications. And those are PhD students, those are data scientists, AI data scientists, and they are doing fine tuning. They are playing with the deep learning models. They are using vector database. They are using vectors. So what happened in the past 18 months is that with the breakthrough of large language models, the barrier to build an AI application has been minimized. So so everyone can create their own copilot or agent in weeks, and with zero cost, literally zero cost. And so that's why in the past 1 year, the number of AI developers, I think goes from 1 million to probably like 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. So that's why you will hear about everyone is talking about large language model, talk about a RAG solution, and talk about a vector database. And the other thing that vector database and the large language model together build a RAG solution is also avoid this tedious work of fine tuning. So you don't need to fine tune anymore. So that further down lower the cost for you to build an AI application. So what I'm going to say is that back 7 years ago, there already been a demand for vector processing, for embeddings, for vectors. But only a very limited number of researchers and data scientists they know about the technology. So actually, back 18 months ago, before the breakout of a large language model, we already get 3,000 enterprise users all over the world using us. But still, it's compared. But in the past 18 months, we saw that our user base went up another 10 times. So which means that so it's interesting that because we are open source project, if you look at our GitHub start history, so it took us so the trend is that every 1 year our GitHub start momentum doubled. So which means that in the in the past 12 months we get more stars than what we accumulated in the first 3 years. So I would say that last year was definitely the first year of a vector database. It's it's the beginning of an epic, and but still vector database is seeing a very infant early stage. So so I'm glad that you talk about RAG. So last year we saw a lot of RAG applications, and most likely they are building for text, for documents, and that's what I call RAG 1.0. In this year, we are going to see, actually, we are seeing RAG 2.0, which is RAG for videos, RAG for images. So with all this multi-model foundation models, so we can fit all the text, images, and videos in a single model. And in the year to come, and I'm going to make a very bold prediction here. So we are going to see RAG 3.0, which is going to be RAG for everything. For example, we are going to see RAG for recommendation systems. There are a lot of companies that are working on foundation models for recommendation systems. Because every online business, every e-commerce, they need a recommendation system, customized recommendation system. And it used to be very, very tedious. It involves a lot of resources to fine-tune the recommendation model. So we know that TikTok is very good at recommendation. So, but they put tens of billions over in the past 10 years to build a recommendation system. So nowadays, that companies like NVIDIA, like Google, like Meta, they are building this foundation model for recommendation systems. So the idea is that we have a foundation model for recommendation system which is trained by a lot of this public information about about customer, about user profile, about user interest, user behavior. So that's the foundation model. But every business is different. And so then you need a RAG for recommendation system. So what you want to put into this this model is that it's your private, domain-specific behavioral profile, behavioral information. So instead of like fine-tuning the foundation model, you use a RAG system to enhance the foundation model with your own private user profile, domain-specific user interest profile, and so a lot of people think that RAG is only is only for document and for text, but in my opinion, that RAG actually is not just technology. It's more like a economical model that bridge the public information and the private domain-specific information. And they're always going to be domain-specific private information because you don't want to give away your data to companies like OpenAI, like large language model, because data is your most valuable asset.
Thank you so much, Charles. This is a bonus answer. Thank you. That's why we said at the beginning, you are going to feel 2 hours of heartbeat. You can feel Charles and John's energy, the passion, read it through this conference. We mentioned quite some time, 7 years back, another landmark in AI is that there is a breakthrough research paper. Who knows, 7 years back? Attention is all you need. It's a foundation for generative AI. I'm not going to go through too much about the technologies, but behind story is that this research paper name is inspired by Beatles' song. All you need is love. With that, we are going to close today's wonderful panelist seminar. I want to say, all we need is entrepreneurship. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.